The Stellar Horizons warning systems blared to life at 0300 ship time, jolting Dr. Maya Rodriguez from her research. The massive research vessel's AI had detected an unknown craft drifting through the Carina Nebula's outer rim, its power systems failing and life support critically low. Multiple biosignatures detected, announced the ship's AI, its voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. Configuration unknown. Matches no known species in database. Maya rushed to the bridge, her dark hair still disheveled from sleep. Captain James Walker stood at the command console, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays showing the alien vessel's deteriorating condition. Dr. Rodriguez, he acknowledged her arrival without turning. Your expertise might be needed. We're picking up crystalline-based life forms. Nothing like we've ever encountered. The alien ship was beautiful despite its dire condition, a spiraling structure of translucent material that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. As they watched, another power surge rippled through its hull, causing sections to fade and flicker like dying stars. Permission to lead the first contact team, Maya said, already reaching for her emergency medkit. She had spent the last decade studying theoretical xenobiology, preparing for exactly this kind of encounter. The captain nodded, knowing her reputation as one of Earth's foremost experts in non-carbon-based life forms. The boarding team assembled quickly, Maya, 2 security officers, and a quantum systems specialist named Dr. Raj Patel. As their shuttle approached the alien vessel, Maya's instruments began recording unprecedented energy patterns. These readings, she muttered, adjusting her sensors. It's as if their entire ship is one living organism. The alien vessel's emergency airlock accepted their docking protocols with surprising ease. Inside, corridors of crystalline material thrummed with fading energy. The team's boots clicked against surfaces that seemed to resonate with their movements. They found the survivors in what appeared to be the ship's central chamber. 12 crystalline beings, their forms roughly humanoid but composed of shifting, geometric patterns of light and matter. All but one lay in some form of stasis, their inner light dimmed to barely a flicker. The remaining being stood guard over the others, its form more defined, more complex. It turned to face the human team, and Maya felt rather than heard its first communication, a sensation of thoughts and emotions flowing directly into her mind. I am Ambassador Kthara of the Nexian Collective, the being projected. You have found us at the twilight of our civilization. Maya stepped forward, her translator working to convert her thoughts into patterns the being could understand. I'm Dr. Maya Rodriguez of the Earth science vessel Stellar Horizon. We're here to help. The ambassador's form flickered, patterns of light cascading through its crystalline structure. Help may be beyond even your kind's capabilities, Doctor. We suffer from no ordinary ailment. Our quantum matrix, the very foundation of our consciousness, is degrading. A plague that attacks not just our bodies, but the fabric of our existence. Maya activated her medical scanners, watching in fascination as they struggled to analyze the Nexians' unique biology. Their bodies seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, their consciousness spread across various dimensional planes. How long, she asked, already formulating theories and potential approaches. Without intervention, the last of us will fade within your month, Kthara projected, its mental voice heavy with resignation. We are the last repository of our civilization's knowledge, 10,000 years of science, art, and discovery. When we fade, all of it fades with us. The weight of this responsibility settled over Maya like a physical force. Here was not just a medical crisis, but a cultural one. The potential loss of an entire civilization's worth of knowledge and experience, it was unthinkable. We have tried everything within our understanding, Kthara continued. Our greatest minds spent their last energies searching for a cure, only to fade themselves. The plague seems to feed on our attempts to combat it, adapting faster than we can respond. Maya shared a look with Raj, whose quantum systems expertise might prove crucial. Ambassador, she said, I promise you, we will do everything in our power to help. Humanity has faced impossible challenges before. Sometimes the solution lies in approaching the problem from an entirely new perspective. Kthara's form brightened momentarily, hope flickering through its crystalline structure. Perhaps that is why we were guided to your region of space. Your species is young, but your perspectives are unique. You think in ways we had forgotten were possible. As Maya began setting up her equipment, the ambassador shared more details about their civilization, a species that had achieved quantum enlightenment millennia ago, transcending traditional physical limitations. But their very advancement had made them vulnerable to this new threat, this quantum plague that turned their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. The next few hours were a blur of activity as Maya and her team worked to stabilize the Nexians' life support systems and gather preliminary data. Each scan revealed new layers of complexity in their biology, new challenges to overcome. But with each discovery, Maya's determination only grew stronger. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change everything, not just for the Nexians, but for humanity as well. The quantum principles underlying their existence could revolutionize human understanding of consciousness itself. The first part of their mission was clear: keep the Nexians alive long enough to understand the nature of their affliction. But Maya already suspected that finding a cure would require pushing the boundaries of both Nexian and human science into entirely new territory. Looking at her initial readings, she realized this might be the greatest challenge of her career, and possibly the most important discovery in human history. The question was, would she be able to unlock the secrets of Nexian biology before time ran out? The following days aboard the Stellar Horizon became a desperate race against time. Maya watched through her quantum microscope as another sample of Nexian crystal structure destabilized, its intricate patterns of light and energy dissolving into chaos. This was the 12th failed attempt to isolate the quantum plague's mechanism of action. Their consciousness exists in a quantum superposition, Raj explained, reviewing the latest data streams. It's like their thoughts exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The plague isn't just attacking their physical form, it's unraveling the quantum coherence that makes them what they are. Maya rubbed her tired eyes, her lab coat wrinkled from too many hours hunched over equipment. The Stellar Horizons labs had been transformed into a makeshift xenobiology research center, with half the ship's computing power dedicated to modeling Nexian quantum states. Ambassador Kthara's condition was deteriorating faster than the others. As the most complex consciousness among the survivors, the quantum plague seemed to target them more aggressively. Their once brilliant crystalline form now flickered erratically, geometric patterns struggling to maintain coherence. "We're missing something fundamental," Maya muttered, reviewing the failed treatment attempts. Each effort to stabilize the Nexians' quantum matrix had only accelerated the degradation. It was as if the plague adapted to their interventions, learning from each attempt to fight it. Captain Walker entered the lab, his face grave. "Dr. Rodriguez, Earth Command is requesting an update. They're concerned about the resources we're devoting to this effort." Maya straightened, fighting back frustration. "Tell them we're on the verge of understanding an entirely new form of consciousness. The Nexians' quantum biology could revolutionize our understanding of existence itself." "They're more concerned about the potential risks," Walker replied carefully. "Housing beings who exist in quantum superposition, some believe it could affect our own reality." Before Maya could respond, the ship's AI announced an emergency in the Nexian quarters. They rushed to find Ambassador Kthara's form pulsing with chaotic energy, their quantum matrix threatening to collapse entirely. "The collapse is accelerating," Kthara projected, their thoughts fragmented and distorted. Each consciousness that fades seems to amplify the plague's effect on the survivors. Maya worked frantically with her team to stabilize the ambassador, using precisely calibrated energy fields to reinforce their quantum coherence. As she worked, she noticed something strange in the readings, a pattern she hadn't seen before. "Raj," she called out, "look at this interference pattern. It's almost like their consciousness is trying to maintain connection with something beyond our dimensional space." The quantum systems specialist studied the readings, his eyes widening. These patterns, they're similar to the quantum entanglement experiments we've been conducting. But on a scale I've never seen before. A theory began to form in Maya's mind. What if the plague isn't a disease at all? What if it's a symptom of something larger, a breakdown in the quantum network that connects their entire species? She turned to Kthara, whose form had stabilized somewhat under the containment fields. Ambassador, you said you were the last repository of your civilization's knowledge. Could the plague be related to the loss of your connection to the rest of your kind? Kthara's patterns shifted in what Maya had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. Our consciousness has always existed as part of a larger quantum matrix. The great linking of minds that gave birth to our civilization. But we never considered the possibility that isolation could cause such degradation. Maya's mind raced with implications. The Nexians weren't just individuals, they were nodes in a vast quantum network of consciousness. The survivors' isolation from their civilization hadn't just cut them off from knowledge, it had destabilized the very foundation of their existence. We need to change our approach entirely, she announced to her team. Instead of trying to fight the degradation, we need to find a way to substitute for the lost quantum connections. Something to anchor their consciousness in our spacetime. The next hours were a blur of activity as they reconfigured their equipment. Maya's team began mapping the quantum signature of the Nexians' collective consciousness, trying to understand the precise nature of their interconnection. But each attempt to artificially replicate the quantum network seemed to fall short. Human technology, advanced as it was, struggled to generate the complex quantum states necessary to stabilize even a single Nexian consciousness. There's a pattern here we're not seeing, Maya insisted, reviewing the failed attempts. She had started keeping a log of her theories, each one building on the lessons of previous failures. The plague accelerates when we try to force their quantum matrix to conform to our understanding of physics. We need to think beyond our traditional models of consciousness. As if to emphasize the urgency of their task, another of the Nexian survivors began to show signs of critical degradation. Maya watched helplessly as the being's crystalline form lost coherence, its consciousness fragmenting across quantum states until nothing remained but inert crystal. The loss hit the remaining Nexians hard. Maya could sense their collective grief, not just emotional, but manifesting in actual perturbations of their quantum states. It was then that she noticed something crucial in the readings. The degradation pattern, she gasped, calling Raj over to verify her observation. It's not random. Look at the quantum signature during the moment of loss. It's like their consciousness is searching for a new form of stability. She turned to Kthara, her mind racing with possibilities. Ambassador, you said your species achieved quantum enlightenment millennia ago. Did you ever experiment with transferring consciousness to different forms of quantum matrices? Kthara's form brightened slightly. Such experiments were conducted in our earliest days, before we fully understood our nature. But they were abandoned as too unstable, too dangerous. Maybe that's our answer, Maya said, excitement building despite her exhaustion. We've been trying to preserve your existing quantum matrix. What if instead we need to help your consciousness evolve into a new form of quantum existence? The idea was radical, possibly dangerous. But as Maya looked at her readings again, she became more convinced. The quantum plague wasn't just destroying the Nexians, it was forcing their consciousness to seek a new state of being. The question was, could they find that new state before it was too late? As she began outlining her new theory to the team, Maya felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. They weren't just fighting to save lives anymore, they were attempting to guide an ancient species through an evolutionary leap into an unknown form of existence. The risks were enormous, but the alternative was extinction. The real work was just beginning. Maya stared at the holographic display, unable to believe what she was seeing. It had started as a routine neural scan, a baseline reading of her own brain activity to compare against the Nexians' quantum patterns. But there, in the chaos of human consciousness, she saw something remarkable. "Raj," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "Look at these neural oscillation patterns. They're fractal, self-similar at multiple scales, just like the base structure of Nexian consciousness." The quantum system specialist rushed over, his eyes widening as he processed the implications. The human brain, with its complex network of neural connections, generated patterns surprisingly similar to the quantum fields that sustained Nexian awareness. "It's not exact," Raj cautioned, adjusting the display's parameters. "Human consciousness operates at a much lower quantum coherence level. But the organizational principles are fundamentally compatible," Maya finished. She immediately began cross-referencing her discovery with the data from their failed attempts to stabilize the Nexians. Each piece started falling into place. Ambassador Kthara's crystalline form pulsed weakly from their containment chamber. The quantum plague had progressed significantly, leaving only 4 survivors. Their once brilliant geometric patterns now shifted erratically, like static on an ancient video screen. Maya approached the ambassador's chamber, her mind racing with possibilities. "Ambassador, we've found something. Human neural patterns, they might serve as a template for reorganizing your quantum matrix." Kthara's response came slowly, their thoughts fragmented but tinged with interest. "Explain, how could such primitive consciousness help stabilize our advanced state?" "That's just it," Maya said, projecting her findings onto the chamber's walls. "Our consciousness isn't primitive, it's different. Human brains evolved to maintain coherent thought patterns despite operating at the edge of quantum chaos. We're naturally resistant to the kind of degradation you're experiencing." The ambassador's form brightened slightly as they processed this information. "You suggest, using human neural patterns as a framework, to rebuild our quantum network?" "More than that," Maya continued, her excitement building. "Your species achieved quantum enlightenment by forcing order onto chaos. But human consciousness embraces chaos, uses it. Our neural patterns are constantly adapting, evolving. What if that's what your people need now?" Working with renewed purpose, Maya's team began mapping the precise correlation between human neural oscillations and Nexian quantum states. Each discovery brought new challenges, but also new hope. The transfer would need to be precise, Raj warned, reviewing their preliminary models. Too much deviation from the base pattern, and we could lose their consciousness entirely. Maya nodded, understanding the stakes. They would need a perfect template, a human mind willing to serve as the foundation for an entirely new form of Nexian consciousness. The implications were staggering. As they refined their approach, Maya noticed something unexpected in the data. The correlation between human and Nexian consciousness wasn't just mathematical, there were moments of actual resonance, brief instances where the two forms of awareness seemed to synchronize. "It's like they're trying to communicate," she murmured, watching the patterns align and separate. "Not through language or thought, but through the fundamental rhythm of consciousness itself." The discovery led to another breakthrough. Instead of trying to force the Nexians' quantum matrix to conform to human patterns, they could use these moments of natural resonance as bridges, allowing their consciousness to gradually adapt to a new form of stability. But time was running out. Another of the survivors had begun showing signs of critical degradation. Maya worked frantically to refine their approach, knowing they would only get one chance to attempt the transfer. The process would require complete neural synchronization, she explained to Captain Walker during their daily briefing. A human volunteer would need to maintain absolute focus while their neural patterns were used to guide the Nexians' quantum transformation. "And the risks to the volunteer?" Walker asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Maya hesitated before responding. "Unknown. Best case scenario, they experienced temporary neural disruption. Worst case, their consciousness could become entangled with the Nexian quantum matrix. The separation might not be possible." The captain absorbed this information silently. They both understood the diplomatic implications. If something went wrong, if a human volunteer was lost in the attempt to save the Nexians, it could strain the newly formed bonds between their species. But the potential benefits were equally enormous. Success wouldn't just save the Nexians, it would represent the first true merger of human and alien consciousness, opening doors to understanding that neither species could achieve alone. As Maya returned to her lab, she found Kthara attempting to communicate with her. The ambassador's form was barely coherent now, their thoughts coming in broken fragments. "We have seen your memories," Kthara projected weakly. "Your species, so young, yet you grasp concepts that took us millennia to understand. Your chaos, your beautiful chaos." Maya felt a sudden resonance in her own mind, a moment of connection that transcended normal consciousness. In that instant, she understood something profound about the nature of awareness itself, how it existed not in the patterns, but in the spaces between them. The revelation brought with it a terrible certainty. The neural template couldn't be just any human volunteer. It needed to be someone who had spent years studying consciousness itself, someone whose mind was already attuned to the boundaries between order and chaos. It needed to be her. As Maya began preparing the final calculations for the transfer attempt, she kept this realization to herself. There would be time for explanations later, after she had committed herself fully to the most dangerous scientific experiment in human history. The question was no longer whether they could save the Nexians, but what price would be paid for their salvation. And as Maya looked at her readings one last time, she wondered if anyone, human or Nexian, was truly ready for what would come next. The chamber hummed with energy as Maya made her final preparations. She had spent the last 24 hours recording her research notes, updating her will, and writing letters to her family back on Earth. The captain had tried to talk her out of it 3 times already. "There has to be another way," Raj argued, watching her calibrate the quantum interface. "We could synthesize neural patterns, create an artificial template." "We've tried artificial solutions," Maya interrupted gently. "The Nexian consciousness requires something organic, adaptive. Something that can evolve with them." She checked another reading. "Besides, we're out of time." She wasn't exaggerating. Kthara's quantum matrix was approaching critical instability, and the other survivors weren't far behind. The ambient energy in their containment chamber had taken on a desperate quality, like the flickering of a candle in its final moments. Captain Walker entered the lab, his face etched with concern. "Dr. Rodriguez, as your commanding officer, I need to formally object to this course of action. The risks are mine to take," Maya finished. She turned to face him, her expression resolute. "Captain, we're not just saving 4 lives here. We're preserving the knowledge and culture of an entire civilization. And more than that, we're on the verge of understanding consciousness itself. Some things are worth risking everything for." The captain held her gaze for a long moment before nodding slowly. "At least let us implement additional safety protocols. If your consciousness begins to destabilize, then Raj will initiate emergency separation," Maya agreed. "But you should know. I intend to maintain the connection as long as necessary to ensure complete transfer." The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. They all knew that the longer her consciousness remained linked to the Nexian quantum matrix, the harder it would be to separate, if separation was possible at all. Maya approached Kthara's chamber one last time before the procedure. The ambassador's form was barely visible now, more suggestion than substance. "Are you certain?" Kthara's thoughts whispered in her mind. "The merging of consciousness has never been attempted between species. The experience may be beyond endurance." Maya placed her hand against the chamber's crystalline surface. "When I became a xenobiologist, I took an oath to preserve and protect all forms of life. But this is more than duty. This is about understanding. Connection. The next step in both our species' evolution." As her team made the final adjustments to the equipment, Maya settled into the neural interface chair. Electrodes were attached to her temples and spine, while quantum sensors mapped her brain's electrical activity. The air crackled with potential energy. "Neural mapping complete," Raj announced, his voice tight with tension. "Quantum field generators at full power. Ready to begin consciousness synchronization on your mark." Maya closed her eyes, focusing on her breathing. Years of meditation practice had prepared her for this moment, or so she hoped. Begin primary sequence. The first stage of synchronization felt like falling into a dream. Maya's consciousness expanded, touching the edges of something vast and alien. The Nexian quantum matrix surrounded her awareness like an ocean of living light. Neural patterns holding steady, she heard Raj say, his voice seeming to come from very far away. Beginning secondary sequence, quantum resonance in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved into patterns of impossible complexity. Maya felt her consciousness fragmenting, spreading across multiple quantum states simultaneously. Part of her mind screamed in protest at the unnatural sensation, while another part marveled at the beauty of existence beyond linear time and space. Through the chaos, she felt the Nexians' awareness reaching for her, their dying consciousness recognizing the stability of her neural patterns. The resonance between their quantum states deepened, frequencies aligning like the harmonics of some cosmic symphony. Quantum coherence achieving critical threshold, Raja's voice echoed through multiple layers of reality. "Dr. Rodriguez, your neural patterns are beginning to entangle with the Nexian matrix. We need to." "No," Maya projected, her thoughts rippling through both normal and quantum space. "Not yet. I can feel it working. They're adapting. Learning to exist within the framework of human consciousness." The process was overwhelming, beautiful, and terrifying. Maya experienced memories that weren't her own, the rise of Nexian civilization, their transcendence to quantum consciousness, the devastating plague that had driven them to the edge of extinction. At the same time, she felt her own memories and experiences flowing into their awareness, teaching them new ways to organize thought and maintain coherence. Warning alarms blared in the physical world, but they seemed increasingly irrelevant to Maya's expanded consciousness. She was existing in multiple states simultaneously, her awareness spread across dimensions she had never known existed. Neural patterns becoming chaotic, she heard someone shout. "We're losing separation between." "Wait." Maya's voice and thoughts merged into something new, something neither fully human nor Nexian. "I can see it now, the pattern within patterns. The way forward." In that moment of crisis and revelation, Maya understood what needed to be done. Rather than fighting to maintain separation between human and Nexian consciousness, she began actively merging them, using her own neural patterns as a bridge between quantum and classical states of awareness. The pain was extraordinary, but so was the enlightenment. Maya felt her consciousness expanding beyond anything she had ever imagined, touching realms of existence that defied description. Through it all, she held on to her core identity, not fighting the transformation, but guiding it, showing the Nexians how to maintain their own essence through change. As the merger reached its peak, Maya made one final, desperate effort to communicate with her team. "Don't stop the process. Almost there." The universe held its breath as human and alien consciousness danced on the edge of either transcendence or oblivion. And in that eternal moment, something new was born. 3 months after the consciousness transfer, the Stellar Horizons observation deck had been transformed into a unique communication center. Crystal formations grew from the walls in elegant spirals, pulsing with inner light that seemed to respond to the thoughts of those nearby. At the center of it all was what the crew had come to call the Nexus, a crystalline structure that housed the merged consciousness of Dr. Maya Rodriguez and the surviving Nexians. Raj sat at his usual station, monitoring the quantum readings that had become increasingly complex since the merger. The patterns of consciousness they now recorded defied traditional scientific classification, existing simultaneously in normal spacetime and in quantum states that their instruments could barely detect. "Neural synchronization holding steady," he reported to Captain Walker. "The merger appears to be completely stable." The captain nodded, his eyes fixed on the Nexus. Like everyone else aboard the stellar horizon, he was still adapting to their new reality. The being that emerged from the consciousness transfer was both Maya and not Maya, both human and Nexian, yet somehow more than the sum of its parts. The Nexus pulsed with increased intensity, and a familiar yet altered voice filled their minds. The integration continues to exceed our expectations, Maya's consciousness projected, now harmoniously blended with the Nexian awareness. We are discovering new aspects of existence daily. The transformation had not only saved the Nexians from extinction but had created an entirely new form of consciousness. Maya's human neural patterns had provided the stability they needed, while the Nexians' quantum nature had expanded human awareness beyond its previous limitations. The diplomatic corps arrives tomorrow, Captain Walker reminded them. Earth Command is eager to understand the implications of what's happened here. A ripple of something like amusement passed through the Nexus. They wish to know if it can be replicated, Maya's thoughts clarified. If other humans could undergo the same transformation. The question had been a source of intense debate since news of the merger reached Earth. The possibility of expanding human consciousness to quantum levels was tantalizing, but the risks and ethical implications were enormous. We are neither cautionary tale nor instruction manual, the Nexus continued, patterns of light shifting through its crystalline structure. What happened here was born of necessity and choice. The path forward must be found by each species in their own time. The Nexus had spent the past months sharing filtered insights from their expanded consciousness, revolutionary theories in quantum physics, new approaches to medicine, and deeper understandings of the nature of awareness itself. But they were careful not to overwhelm humanity with knowledge it wasn't ready to handle. There are steps between, Maya's consciousness explained, bridges to be built between classical and quantum states of being. The merger has shown us possibilities we never imagined, but the journey cannot be rushed. Research teams from Earth's leading institutions had already begun studying the hybrid consciousness, learning how human and Nexian awareness could coexist and enhance each other. The implications for both species were profound. The Nexians' vast knowledge was now preserved, not just as information but as living wisdom, experienced through the lens of human understanding. And humanity had gained its first true insight into consciousness beyond its classical limitations. We remember being Maya, the Nexus projected softly, responding to the unspoken questions that always lingered in visitors' minds. We remember being Nexian. But what we are now is something new, a prototype for what consciousness itself can become when artificial boundaries are transcended. Through their merged awareness, they had discovered that consciousness was neither purely quantum nor purely classical, but existed on a spectrum that few had imagined possible. The merger had opened doors to understanding that neither species could have achieved alone. Raja's instruments picked up a new pattern emerging from the Nexus, more complex than anything they'd recorded before. "Are you evolving again?" he asked, fascinated by the readings. "Always," came the response, tinged with what felt like joy. "Consciousness is not static. It grows, adapts, transforms. What we are becoming, we have no words for it yet. But we will find them, together." The crystal formations throughout the room pulsed in harmony with these thoughts, creating patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could perceive. It was beautiful and alien and somehow deeply familiar all at once. Captain Walker stepped closer to the Nexus, his expression thoughtful. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "The sacrifice?" The question rippled through multiple layers of reality before an answer formed. "Regret implies loss," Maya's consciousness responded. "We have not lost, but gained. Not ended, but begun. The sacrifice was real, but so is the triumph." As if to emphasize this point, the Nexus began projecting images of possible futures, glimpses of human and Nexian cooperation leading to achievements neither species had dreamed possible. New forms of art that existed in quantum states, scientific discoveries that bridged multiple dimensions, and ways of thinking that transcended traditional boundaries of consciousness. "This is only the beginning," the merged consciousness projected. We are the first notes in a symphony that will take centuries to fully compose. The legacy of our choice will echo through generations of both our species. The crystal formations pulsed one final time, creating a moment of perfect resonance that touched everyone in the room. In that instant, they all felt a fraction of what Maya had experienced, the infinite potential of consciousness unleashed from its conventional bounds, the beauty of existence viewed through quantum eyes, and the profound truth that the greatest discoveries often require the courage to leap into the unknown. As the resonance faded, the crew of the Stellar Horizon returned to their duties, forever changed by their part in this unprecedented chapter of human and Nexian history. The Nexus continued its peaceful pulsing, a living testament to what could be achieved when the boundaries between species, between states of consciousness, and between what was possible and impossible were finally transcended. In the end, Maya Rodriguez had not just saved an alien species, she had helped create a bridge between two forms of existence, opening the door to a future that neither humans nor Nexians could have imagined alone. And somewhere within the quantum matrices and neural patterns of their merged consciousness, both species had found something they didn't know they were looking for, a way forward, together.